recording. Okay, we are recording now. I wanted to, of course, begin by saying thank you so much for attending today's webinar. This has been a really great project. I'm really excited to share it with you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, hit present. Okay, so as some of you, most of you know, I've been working for the past year on a new story map resource for Long Island. I'll get into a little bit on the background of this project on the first slide, but this is titled Dynamic Shorelines. Again, it's focused on Long Island, and it is a story map collection. For those of you who don't know me, I think you all do, I'm Kathleen Fallon. I'm the Coastal Processes and Hazard Specialist with New York Sea Grant. So this project came out of a partnership with FEMA Region 2. It was funded through their Cooperating Technical Partnership Program, the CTP. This CTP was formed in July of 2020. And the goal of the CTP program is to strengthen and enhance national flood insurance, the program, via FEMA's Risk Map program. And the goal of the Risk Map program is to deliver quality data that increases public awareness and leads to action that reduces risk to life and property. The CTP has several different types of partnerships, and ours was considered a communication and outreach strategy. And as most of you know, also this was not just done here on Long Island. My colleague Jess Kunin also did a similar project, or basically the same project, up in the Hudson River. So we ultimately wound up with two end products, one for Long Island, one for the Hudson. It was quite an interesting experience learning through the year of our work, of seeing the differences on Long Island and in the Hudson, and also the similarities, and you know, what it came out with to be in our two very different end products, but also very similar end products. So the problem that we identified through our proposal, what we said was needed, right? We identified this need, or this existence of a lack of general education about the natural shoreline for Long Island and the Hudson, and the watershed processes that can lead to decisions by shoreline decision makers that exacerbate flooding and erosion issues over time. Our target audience, I'll talk about this a little bit more, we've been using the term shoreline decision makers. And really what we mean by that is people who are able to, or are tasked with making decisions about the shoreline, whether it's a property owner, a property manager, a municipal official, and so on and so forth. So this is quite a wide target audience. Going back to the issues that we were identifying, we also came up with this issue that community members feel that they are not always aware of the why during the planning process. And sometimes planning may be done, may be rushed. Sometimes it is done on a quick timescale in order to accommodate grants or funding availability. And so, you know, this might lead to decisions that don't have the opportunity to be as well thought out. And then the last problem identified was turnover of local officials and staff, you know, a lack of consistency of people in offices that you are able to reach and contact over time and have a long-term relationship with, because as we know, the shoreline decisions are not one and done. There will constantly be change over time. So our goal of this project was to be able to provide the shoreline decision makers, this broad audience that I talked about, with easily accessible scientific and technical information that frames shoreline management and local development from a systems view and considers climate change impacts. Some of the other factors as I mentioned, this CTP formed in July of 2020. So some of the other factors that we took into consideration when developing our proposal and moving forward with this project specifically, we were in the height of the pandemic. Most of you who have worked with Sea Grant in the past know that we are known for our outreach events. So, this has really, the lack of in-person communication and events had really kind of made us shift gears to try and see other ways to get this information out into out to our stakeholders. We wanted to present the information in an engaging way. We wanted to support the work that is already happening. And I'll talk more about these two factors as I get into the actual story map, and you'll see how it's engaging, and it also helps support the work that has already happened or is happening. And also this was pretty much a whirlwind project. It was completed within 1 year. And as I'll talk about later on this afternoon, we recently did find out we have the ability to expand upon this first year and with a second phase. So the project components, we began with a literature resource review. This was basically just a informal compilation of what is out there, what resources exist, what literature is there that we can draw upon or link to in our new resource. And then we moved on from that to a needs assessment. And this needs assessment was shaped in the form of a focus group. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple of slides, but the goal of our focus groups and this needs assessment was to get a better understanding of what information we could provide in order to make this new resource as relevant as possible and answer as many questions that people had. We also wanted to understand people's experience. And again, I'll talk more about that, I think, on the next slide. The final deliverable is the story map collection, which I will be sharing with you guys today. And then we did have to consider branding and advertising with this project. Since it is an online resource, we did need to figure out how we were going to get this information out into the public. And again, as many of you participated in, we did have a very extensive review process where many people who participated in the needs assessment portion, and also just a lot of my peers in the field, really, I'm very humbled with the amount of time you guys did provide to me in order to review this content. So why did we decide on a story map collection? The story maps really allow us to be a lot more flexible with our storytelling. It gives us options to be able to easily update them and put in new information as it becomes available. We were able to create chapters, which, as you'll see in a few minutes, it's a story map collection, but each chapter is different. and you can go through the different chapters. You can link from one chapter to the next. You can link to specific sections within the chapters. So it's really, really flexible in that sense. It is useful. It has many engaging functions, which I will show you in a few minutes, such as interactive maps, the ability to put in slideshow, embed directly other resources. And again, like I mentioned, you can self-reference it within itself. This is very accessible. It is online, and it actually is very, it transfers very nicely to a mobile phone. And again, I mentioned easily to update. So here's some information about that needs assessment. Like I said, it was our chance to hear from the target audience, the shoreline decision makers, which, as I mentioned, we consider to be residents and local officials or staff. We also talked to shoreline what we called shoreline influencers. And these are the consultants and realtors, the people who are working with our decision makers. On Long Island, I hosted 2 virtual workshops, 3 one-on-one interviews, 2 virtual focus groups, sorry, and 3 one-on-one interviews, ultimately having 16 participants, 6 which were residents, 9 officials, 1 water-based business. And I was able to ensure that Nassau and Suffolk counties, as well as all of Long Island's shorelines, were represented, meaning I had people from the North Shore, the South Shore, living on the ocean, living in on the bays, or working both. And in these needs assessment, like I said, we wanted to hear about our audience's experience with risk and hazards in their experience of living on or working along the shoreline. And this information really helped guide us through the development of the content of the story map, and it hopefully is reflected in there. We did, as I mentioned, the branding and advertising. So we created a postcard that will be able to be distributed both virtually and in person. This is the front of the postcard. It has the link to the story maps. It's got a QR code. It has the contact information. And then here is the back. It talks about what the story map collection is and breaks down the 5 chapters that I have with individual links to the chapters, as well as a quick summary of all 5 chapters. And just a quick plug, a note, these are not our final logos. Or branding. We did have a little bit of a hiccup with our graphic designer, and that will be something, as I mentioned, that will continue through phase 2. So you may see some differences in these logos over time, but we will be, you see, they all kind of flow together. We have Long Island, we have the Hudson, and part of the second phase is there will be, our colleagues up in the Great Lakes will be creating a version of the story map up there. So now I will go through to the story map collection. Jess is able to put the link into the chat, so you're able to have that link, open it and look on with me. This is a QR code, like I mentioned, the one on the postcard. So if you wanted to use your phone, you can put your phone up to that and take a look. Pull it up that way. So I'm just gonna switch my screens really quickly. You can still, so now you are seeing the landing page of the story map collection. It says here, title, it talks about how this collection examines coastal processes and hazards of Long Island, and provides options for sustainable and resilient shoreline management. And then as you scroll down, you will see the 5 chapters here. The first one being Long Island's dynamic history, which really talks about how Long Island formed and shoreline development. Long Island's coastal processes is chapter 2. And this really talks about the coastal processes of Long Island, as it says. The third chapter is Living with Long Island's Dynamic Shorelines. This goes into the details of risks and impacts of coastal storms, as well as options for mitigation. Fourth chapter talks about future sea level rise and other impacts of climate change. And the last chapter is all of the resources that are available for Long Island's shoreline decision makers. So you can start anywhere you want. We're going to start in chapter 1. And as you see, you are able to scroll through this up here. Clicking on this left side will get you back to the main page. And to navigate to those 5 chapters are up here on this the top. You can also navigate to the different sections of the story map here. This one has 2 sections, starts with geology, and then you can move on to settlement. And as you scroll through, you can see that there's plenty of options for putting in different images. I think this one is more so images and doesn't have too much interaction. You move into the second part of the chapter, which talks about the settlement, history, and shoreline and beach development. Chapter 2, again, you can see you have physical forces and coastal processes and features. This is there it goes, a water body map. So it shows all of the water bodies on Long Island, as well as the watersheds, which are labeled, and you are able to zoom in and kind of find a location, your house, your home, and find out which watershed you are in. This was that introductory to coastal processes chapter. So it talks about waves, tides. It has an options for you to find your local tides, flooding. And it has other, like I said, you're able to embed other tools. So this is the NOAA sea level rise viewer here that you are able to use in real time. There it goes. Again, more images and other interactive maps. Apologies for the slow loading. And then moving on through the different types of coastal processes and features. I apologize for scrolling quickly. I want to make sure that I'm able to show you everything. You have the links so you can go into further detail and read on your own. Since I'm down here, I do want to point out that each of the chapter does have a link to a Qualtrics survey. This is an opportunity for people who are reading it to provide us feedback, as well as ask questions and other things for our acknowledgements, the contact information, and the link to the New York Sea Grant website. Same thing. So chapter 3 talks about risks, coastal storms, impacts, mitigation and adaptation, and lastly, shoreline management. This one has 2 back-to-back PowerPoint presentations that talk about historical hurricanes and impacts of them on Long Island. And then a similar presentation for historical nor'easters. So it's a great opportunity to be able to put in information into these story maps. Again, flooding, images, graphics, other tools that people can use. I am able to link to various other resources directly in the story map. I'm able to embed other resources. And I'll keep going. This is another example of how we are able to link to different resources. This is a report about managed retreat in Staten Island after Superstorm Sandy. This is a great picture. This is a great feature, also a great picture, but you can slide through and see it before and after. This is post Sandy, the dunes at East Atlantic Beach. And then I'm able to slide and be able to see a current image of the dune regrowth. And then again, we are able to, and then I'm able to also embed other story maps into the actual story map. So this is the South Shore Estuary Reserve story map on eelgrass. And living shore, this is their living shoreline story map. I'm going to keep, I think I'm going to move on from here. Chapter 4, again, future of Long Island, 3 sections here, talks about sea level rise, other impacts, and what you can do. Here you see I'm able to link back to chapter 1 here. So if somebody's reading this and wants to go back to understand how Long Island was formed, they can click here in order to get back to chapter 1 and read more about that. More map tools, images, and then chapter 5 is resources. So there's a lot embedded here. It starts with New York State policies and permits, then moves on to flood insurance and FEMA resources. It has links to other very helpful tools, other resources, and eventually talks about funding sources. So again, in here, you talk about the permit, and I'm able to directly link to each permit website of the 4 permitting agencies on the joint application, as well as be able to put the joint application directly into this story map. Links to the DEC's resources are in here, Department of State's resources, and OGS. As I mentioned, this is the FEMA, through the FEMA CTP, so we have the information about the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, in here, as well as other FEMA resources and other flood risk products. It talks about here the different maps. So if you're able to access the maps here, and you have the definition of the different maps you can see. And other FEMA resources, information about floodplain management and the Climate Smart Communities programs. These are those helpful tools. This is the New York State's Geographic Information Gateway, the DEC Environmental Resource Mapper, PEP's Critical Lands Protection Strategy Mapper, and this is a FEMA resource of community profiles. And then go into some other resources such as the CARA, as well as guidance on natural resilience measures and local laws, the New York State, Suffolk, and Nassau County hazard mitigation plans, the guidance on living shoreline techniques, nature-based solutions, climate change resources, the U.S. Climate Resilience Toolkit, other risk communication guidance, the Army Corps of Engineers coastal engineering manuals, and links directly to other partner organizations such as Chronic Estuary Partnership and the Long Island Sound Study. And lastly, here's information about funding sources, ranging from federal and national grants down to more New York State and local grant opportunities. So as I mentioned, you go back to the upper left-hand corner, you'll go back to the original screen. I know that was pretty quick. So I hope you guys take the opportunity to look through it. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out now or at a later date. And I just want to quickly end with talking about this phase 2 that we will be working on. As I mentioned, New York Sea Grant really utilizes our ability to do outreach in our communities. And unfortunately, while we were able to do some through virtually, one of the things we want to do in phase 2 is really be able to, like we say, take it on the road. We want to be able to take the story map to the communities. We want to show it to them, and we want to show them how they can use it. And that might include developing some other worksheets or maybe training opportunities to go to associate with the story map. We also have the ability and are thinking about what translating this information looks like. We want to expand upon the content. One of the things Jess and I spent a good amount of time on during this year, and unfortunately had to put it on the bookshelf, was developing some sort of a guide to permitting in New York State, or in New York State's Marine District, I should clarify. And we did get pretty far. Unfortunately, I guess we had to shelve it in order to make sure we actually got through our actual deliverables for this project. But we are planning on continuing that and eventually finishing that over the next year, and that will be added into the story map. As well as adding in more case studies, further analyzing the focus group data that we have collected, maybe doing more focus groups in order to gather more data, and adding a chapter about policy in New York State. We would like to be able to see this as a printed toolkit. You know, as mentioned, story map is really great because I'm able to easily update it, but at the same time, it also may be more beneficial to be able to have this as some sort of a desktop reference. Again, continuing outreach and continuing to improve. And as I alluded to earlier, I have to thank many people over the past year who have just been very, very helpful and supportive. We did have a project advisory committee. These people were very, very helpful in guiding our tasks. And I also have to thank all of the people who participated in the focus groups and who spent time reviewing the content. I am eternally grateful. I can't say that enough. And now I would like to open it up for any questions, comments, discussions. I'm happy to go back to anything in the story map if you'd like. Oh, thanks, Jess. I'm looking at the chat. I forgot to mention, I do have an evaluation survey for today's webinar. Jess just put that in the chat. If you want to or have some time, you can click on that and fill in the evaluation. I will also be sending out an email after our meeting with the links to the story map, as well as the link to the evaluation again.
Nice job.
Kathleen, hi, this is John.
Hi, John.
Hi, I am at liberty to share the program with our community. At what point?
Right now.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yes, it is officially, this is our launch webinar, so it is officially ready to be shared.
Excellent. Yeah, no, this is great. This is going to be big for our little community here.
Great.
And I'm not going to make any mention of our input. I want to see how many people really go through it and comment on it.
Thanks, John.
Oh, yes. I see our beach. I want somebody to say, oh, look, that's our beach. We'll see what happens.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the images. I was so excited to have those and the ability to create that slideshow or this.
Yeah, that's interesting the way you were able to do that.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm going to be looking at that 100 times.
Carlos.
No, it's great content. There's a lot of information. I know in case I may have missed it, but did you talk about how you're going to like maybe how you want to broadcast it since it is a large audience? Like, have you guys thought of like social media or just like really like, just broadcasting it out there?
Yeah, we definitely, well, New York Sea Grant will promote it on our social media. We probably at some point later on at the end of the year, we'll probably do more of a formal press release. And one of the things that Jess and I have to do tomorrow is work on our dissemination plan. So we will be talking about that. I am scheduled to be presenting about this at the New York State stormwater, I'm going to always mess up that acronym, the conference at the beginning of October, NYSFSMA, Stormwater Floodplain Managers Association. So yeah, we will be definitely. And we'll also are hoping that our partners will be able to disseminate it as well through their lists. And also, like I said, we have the postcards. So maybe at tabling events and, sending them directly to communities or even leaving them at planning department offices in, municipalities.
Oh, it's really nice. I mean, it looks like you guys put a lot of work into it. So successful project.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.